Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at edenjustbe.com. And let's get this party started. Hey there, quick note before we get on with this. I just finished recording this with Sherri. It's an awesome show. However, there's this little frequency buzz that is in it throughout, except it's kind of stops at the end. And I don't think you can notice it too much on the video portion, but it's present a little bit on the audio. So just know that that's there. And also know that as I have all guests on the show are important, that the more we try to decimate this important knowledge, the more interference there might be. So hang with it, you lovely people. And I said Sherri's name incorrectly right off in the beginning. So Sherri Divband. So please, my apologies for that. Okay. And it's a good one. All right. See you. Bye. And watch. All right, Sherri. Do a little smile first.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Yay. I do lots of stuff with my hands. So, there you go. Okay. And then Sherri, what I always do is I get the energy sparking up. So you feel free to do anything if you'd like to, because I'm very excited about the show today. Okay. And with Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Network. And I'm going to go ahead and have Sherri Divband say hello. And then I'm going to talk a little bit. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am excited to be here, and thanks for everybody watching.
So they're watching and they're listening on all these different channels. So Sherri is also a seasonal anchor on Grassroots Network. So it is so nice for me to get to meet her in person because we have so many anchors on there too. So I'm one at a time checking them off the list. So in most of our conversation, and not all, well, probably most of our conversation today will be about spiritually centered around kids and education. And today is very poignant for me because I have had many spiritual knowings about children, and especially those in the special needs arena, because my daughter has special needs as well. So within that, it is so great to talk to Sherri today, because at the times when this came up, parents weren't quite ready for the knowledge that I was giving them, for lack of a better way of saying it. So I feel like with us talking, putting my hat more into the ring, knowing that you are involved in all of this and ascension for young ones on a daily basis. So I'm very excited about that. So we are going to talk today about the dark players' indoctrination of the current educational system. If we have time, I'm going to put a little nugget. I would love to talk about sugar, what labels really mean, like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, and so much more. So may I read your official bio?
Absolutely.
Sound good? All right. Sherri Divband is an intuitive, transformational energy healer. And I love this about you too. She was a registered veterinarian tech who worked with animals for almost 20 years, just to add that in there. She is the founder of Aramis Creative Learning Center and the Aramis Collective. She is author of Intuitive Transformation Evolution, Divinely Guided, and the Divinely Guided Children's Books and Animation Series. Her newest book, which we are going to chat about today, is Starseeds and the Great Awakening, Navigating 3D Interference, Healing the Soul, and Shifting Humanity into the Golden Age. Yay, yay! She has focused her healing practice on guiding and representing new Earth children to acclimate to this planet's energy field, which is very dense, as well as guiding and coaching parents on how to raise spirited children. Beyond having a passion for teaching children how to explore and understand their spiritual gifts and facilitating the future of education, she created the Aramis Creative Learning Center in 2020 as a holistic and alternative education platform where children come 1st. All classes are currently virtual and serve 3 time zones: America, Europe, and Australia. The team is working to raise money to open the first in-person center in Florida in 2023, which is this year. So we'll talk about that too. This will serve to be a foundation for many Aramis centers to come, both nationally and internationally. Sherri also works with adults to assist in ancestral healing, trauma release, conscious pregnancy, and soul healing. Ah, some good stuff. What do you think about that?
Yeah. It's crazy when someone reads all of that. I'm like, did I do all of those things? You know, you don't know, people don't really think about all of that in their day-to-day life. And we typically always think, oh, you know, I should be doing more. And we forget what we've already done and what we're already doing. It's really important to sit and reflect sometimes. So it was nice to hear that, because it helps you feel like, all right, I'm doing something.
Oh my gosh, you are. And the first question I want to ask you before we get into a lot of this juicy stuff is, when did you first become aware of the Great Awakening for yourself?
That's an interesting question. I think there are layers to it. I had a knowing about it when I was 23 years old, when I had my first spiritual awakening, when I had my first child. Unexpected, unplanned, that we say on a conscious level anyways. And that was my first awakening, and knowing that things were shifting and the planet was going through an evolutionary process. And then when I had I don't mean to skip over my middle son, but there was another awakening that happened 7 years later. And then when my daughter came, 9 years later, I'm trying to remember the dates now, she was the catalyst to a true awakening, ascension, and knowing, and kind of just opened up everything for me. And that's a whole story in and of itself, but that really helped me know what was really going on in the world. She taught me more than any teacher, any book, any parent, any relative, any friend has ever taught me in my entire life, you know, all condensed within a year period. Before I became pregnant with her, her soul came to me and told me she was coming, told me we had a lot of work to do together. And I channeled her almost weekly. And I learned so much. And that's where my second book came in, Divinely Guided. Most of the information in that book came from her and her teachings. And so that was my next awakening. And I think the final awakening occurred for a lot of people, which was during the pandemic period, where we could actually see it for our eyes, and we were, and you couldn't deny it anymore. And that was a whole other layer. So I think that happens for most people. It's kind of phases that come and go in your life.
So tell me, with your first pregnancy, your son, what exactly happened?
Well, it's interesting, because the reason I worked as a vet tech for so many years is because, and I talk about this in my book, in my story. I had a lot of a lot is ambiguous. I had traumas within my life that really closed me off. I believe that I'm a starseed, and I was always different. And I looked at the world differently. I didn't fit in with everybody. I was kind of that quirky, weird child. And I moved around a lot when I was younger. And so I never felt like I fit in anywhere. It was hard enough. And then I moved around a lot, and there was some sexual abuse, kidnapping. There was a lot of different things that happened. So I became very closed off as my teen years. Hated humanity, hated everybody, you know, wasn't the nicest person. My shadow side kind of took control out of self-preservation, I believe, as many do when they feel like they can't control, they have to latch on to something. And for me, it was my anger. And so animals saved my life. And I went into the animal field because I could see that they treated you unconditionally. They had so much love. And I aspired to be like them, you know, like they just were so beautiful for so many reasons in my life. And so I dedicated my life towards working with animals. And I was never going to work with people, and people are mean, and they're not deserving, right? That was me. And I have to credit my husband, because when I met my husband at 20, just before I turned 21, I think he prepared me for the first awakening that was coming, and he helped me open my heart. And I joke around that he saved me from myself. Like, he really showed me what love was on a human level. Not that I had terrible parents. I mean, they were wonderful, but it was a different kind of love. And he helped me stop being so hard, and really started to open my heart a little bit. So by the time my son came a couple of years later, he cracked my heart open. Like there aren't even words to describe what happened to me, but I completely went through this spiral and came out the other end looking at the world completely different. And I thought to myself, I can't bring my son into a world that I view this way. And everybody must have a story. So if I'm so upset about the world and how I've been treated, imagine what everyone else has gone through, and they're probably that way for a reason. And I started to actually have compassion and empathy for others. And it's because of my son opening my heart and shifting my perspective that everything changed for me. And I really became a really spiritually balanced person. Now, it took some time. I'm not going to lie. Being a new mother, it took probably 5 years of the first 5 years of being a mother to really open that up side of me and truly begin to heal. But when he came into my life, he saved me probably from, a dark path that I may have been headed down with just hating. And who knows what have followed that. And now I'm doing something so much different in contrast to that I think he was the first catalyst for my awakening. And he served a really valuable role, and he still does to this day. I mean, he turned 18 last beginning of this year, and he's a beautiful soul. He's a crystal child, which I do talk about in my book, in 2 books, in fact. And he is a crystal child, and they come in and they open your heart, and that's what they're here to do in the world. They bring in a wave of love that we've never felt, almost like the animals, like this 5th density consciousness of unconditional love. They don't do well with confrontation and conflict. They encourage us to be open-minded and look at things from a different perspective. And he's done all of that for me. He did everything, all of that and more. And that was really helpful for me in hindsight, to who I am now. I don't know that I would have ever gotten here, and I wouldn't have been ready for the next child and the next child that came in. And each of my children did something different for me and helped open up a new pathway.
Okay, I have 2 questions for you. Given the trauma that you had experienced and let's call it the hatred for humanity, how was your husband able to even start opening this when you had all of that in you?
I don't, no one's ever asked me that. And that's a brilliant question. And, if anybody sees us now, I mean, we've been together for 20 some years now. So we've grown together very much. And he was a little bit older than me, 5 years, not a lot older, but old enough that he had some wisdom. And we have completely different personalities. He's a complete extrovert, very charismatic, outgoing. Everyone loves him. And I am not. I'm the opposite. I'm introverted. I'm quiet. I'm shy. I don't like attention on myself. If you put me in the corner of a room, I'm fine. Just leave me there. And I'm the one talking to children and animals at the parties. And he's out there just being himself. And I think that that's what I needed. I think just being around somebody that was so contrast to what I was, and he saw the beauty in people, and people liked him. And I think I wanted to be like, I wanted to feel what that would feel like. And so he basically helped change me by showing me another way. So I don't even think he realized, nor did I, in hindsight, looking back, I don't think we both realized the role we played in each other's life, because I think, grounded him and kept him more earth-centered and balanced and more realistic, because he was kind of that free spirit, free bird, and I was a little bit more grounded. So we complemented each other in that way. But I think that was the main thing he did for me. He broke me out of my shell. Like I said, he saved me from myself, because I had such dark thoughts, and I was just so doom and gloom and so pessimistic. And here this guy comes, and he's the opposite of that. And he just showed me basically another way, another perception, another way to look at life that was so much more beautiful than where I was coming from. And I was like, I want to be like that. I want that in my life. And so that I think that's kind of how he opened that up for me, very slowly.
I would imagine that I have to be like, hey, and then, hey, let me nudge you again a little bit. So with your first son, the crystal child, and saying it took basically 5 years to open you up spiritually, how did that process happen? What is that, when you started getting more of your gifts and tapping into, oh my gosh, there's a much bigger part of me as well?
Yeah, it was a lot. It was not only me getting my gifts and my intuition coming in and knowings, but it was me connecting to this other life form. And anybody out there that's a mother knows that there's no love that you can compare to the love of some of your child. And the way I felt about him was nothing I had ever felt before, even towards my husband and to my family. I don't have brothers and sisters, but I never felt that kind of love before. So it opened up this pathway within me. And it was a lot for me to kind of dissect and understand, while also being a young mom. I was the only one of anyone that I knew at 23 that was having children. And most people thought I was his nanny or his older sister when we would go out, because I also looked very young when I was 23. And so here I am, a new mom, trying to figure out how to be a mom and trying to understand this love that I had never felt in my life, and all these emotions that were coming up. And suddenly I'm nice to people and compassionate, and I'm like, well, where's this coming from? And and then trying to figure out how to not sleep at night, because being a new mom, and so it was just, I think, a lot. And then I started just having knowings and interest in the spiritual realm that I'd always been interested in my whole life, but I kind of put aside, and metaphysical experiences. I became interested in Sylvia Brown, who was kind of the one. Oh, like back then I always watched her on the Montel Williams show, and I said I want to be her one day. Just
Okay, so
odd
literally
thoughts
she
that
was
come through.
a psychic.
A psychic,
Okay.
yeah. At that time, that was popular when around the time that I was kind of opening up to all of this. And then there was like the James Van Frogs and all of these people that were in the public eye that I kind of hooked onto, and I said I want to know everything there is to know. So a lot happened in those 5 years. Really, it was just it was a lot of intensity.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, with your daughter, communicating with her a year before she was born, how did you start just hearing that, or how did that happen?
Good question. So I started a spiritual circle after my son was born, Skylar, 7 years after my first. I had another huge spiritual awakening, and I started to really communicate with my angels and guides, and I started channeling. So I basically I didn't let anyone in my vessel, but I would channel. Another way to explain channeling is telepathy. So I would communicate telepathically with my guides and my guardian angels, and I would start to write messages for myself, for my mother, my family members. And I started to do some mediumship. And, my husband's grandfather who passed away came to me and gave me messages. And it was like intense. A lot of things were going on at that time. So I was really in search of a community, because I didn't, not everybody I knew was open to all of that. But my mother was and still is, and a few other people. So we started a spirit circle, and we would just hang out, and we would, see what we would get, and we would do tarot cards, and we would have fun. It was nothing big. And my son Jordan, the oldest, would come, and he would, hang out, and he was all up in it too. And he'd play with the crystals, and he was awesome. And my youngest was kind of too little, so he would be napping during those spirit circles mainly. But while I was at a spiritual circle, one of those, and I was channeling one day, this being came to me and introduced herself. At the time, she called herself Layla, and it just came out of nowhere. And she said, "I'm going to be your daughter one day." She said one day in the beginning, and she said, "We have a long journey together." And it just kind of started slowly. And she introduced herself through one of those opportunities where I was open and willing to channel and messages. And I didn't actually get pregnant for a year after that. So it was really almost 2 years advance notice. And then every time we would
Seriously.
have, yeah, every time we would have the spirit circle, like, which was almost weekly, I would intentionally and purposely communicate with her. And then when I had moments in the quiet at home, which was rare because of the kids and everything, excuse me, I would take those opportunities to call out to her and get messages. And that's when she really started her teachings on the crystal children, the indigos, the stars, the rainbows. And that's where I got all of that information, was from her and those channelings. And she was kind of like, I was in school. She was teaching me. I think I needed to know a lot of these things before she could physically incarnate, so I would be ready and prepared. And now looking back, it all makes sense. It all makes sense as to why it had to happen that way.
Wow. Okay, so let's transition. Thank you so much for telling us about you and your awakening in your past. Let's go into education and teaching Starseeds. And yeah, tell us what you were doing.
What I'm doing now?
Yes. And all the like, I watched some videos and everything. Just really, I really like also talking about the education system, which I know it is mind control and indoctrination. And you basically having sessions with all these kids in different parts of the world, and they're all kind of saying the same thing. Okay, let me ask, what are some of the some knowledge within the current education system that would be good for parents to know that they might not know? How's that for a question? What does that lead to?
Well, I don't think that there's much in the current education system that's serving the highest good of children in general, because a lot of it is misguided intentionally. And so, which is why I call it the indoctrination camps, because there really is a very minimal positive intention behind it. Because of course they want the children to succeed and excel and do well, but why do they want that? Why do the dark players want that? Because they want them to step in to the adult version of indoctrination, which is the workforce. So we're programmed to be slaves essentially from the time we're born. When we step into the school in general, there's a reason why they call it school. School is an anagram for louche. Louche is what dark energies feed off of. That's the energy that we give off. So when we're stressed, and when children are in school and they're stressed and they're worried and they're frustrated, that's a louche that they could feed off of. But also their creativity, their light. So there's different variations of louche that they can feed off of. But there's a reason why they want children to go into school at 4 or 5 years old, and that's not because of the parents working. It's because that's the age in which the children are the most programmable, because from the age of 5, 6 is when most children up until that point are very imaginative, very multidimensional, very open. They can see through dimensions. They can see spirits, good and bad. They can see the fairies, the angels. They're very connected to their past lives. They'll say things that parents are like, whoa, where did that come from? And they are very vivid. They are very exceptional and illuminated. So if you take that, put them into a school system at 5, 6 years old, when they're the most impressionable, that's also the time in which they can be closed off, and they are anchored into the 3D matrix that I didn't call it the matrix. That was created, I didn't create that, but what we call the matrix. And that is when they are, that's when they're targeted, because that's when they can, loosh off of their light and their creativity, and then also dim them and program them and put them into the indoctrination system at that age, when they're the most viable, because that's the point where they can get them, they can hook them in. And so when they're in school from the ages of 5, sometimes 4, or even younger in preschool, for 6 hours to 8 hours a day, they are in schools that have grid systems around them, which are energy bioweapons and directed energy weapons, both. And the fluorescent lighting, the prison style camps of the school, the properties, the indoctrinated teachers as well. I'm not saying I love teachers. I have a lot of respect for teachers, most of them. And I know that because I've spoken to many in the 20s, 30s that are retired teachers who reach out to me and hear me speak and say, you're so right. And they went in with this in full intention to be a bright shining star for children and to help them and guide them. And they get in there and they realize, well, this is not what this is about. And many of them just succumb and do that because they need to make a living, and they hate their whole professional career. They feel defeated and deflated, and they don't agree with it. And then some leave. And then some just buy into it because they get programmed over time. So there's a lot of variations to that, but unbeknownst to a lot of the teachers, they are part of the programming and indoctrination as well. And the children are taught to follow, to listen, to regurgitate information, to memorize, to take test after test after test, so that the dark players can assess. There's a reason why they have statewide testing, because they want to know what children can do what, and they use those statistics for a lot of other targeting, which I don't want to get too dark into this conversation, but they do everything for a reason. And the other is to just simply get the children to be programmed and listen to what they're told and get used to being enslaved in some way and indoctrinated in some way, and not listen to their gut intuition, not listen to their knowing, and just do what they're told and follow the kid in front of you and speak when spoken to. You can't even go to the bathroom in some of these schools without asking permission first. And sometimes they're told no. They instill fear, and control. And then it just gets worse and worse as they get older. And then they go into the universities, which are even more targeted concentration indoctrination camps. And then they graduate, and then they go out into the world, and then they go into the controlled workforce that we're working until we retire for a very brief period, if we're lucky enough and we don't have disease and illness, and then or we go into the elderly indoctrination camps, I call them, which are the facilities, and then we die. And that's the sad
So
part
fun.
of
Isn't
our
that so fun?
reality. Yeah, but I don't want to sound doom and gloom, because this is where we
It is what it is, though.
and we're changing it, and that's why
Right.
we're talking about it, because this is what it has been, but that doesn't mean that's what it's going to be for much longer. That's why I'm out speaking about it, and many others are, because we are the change, and the children are here to remind us to not to give up, to keep going.
It was so interesting when so I've been doing spiritual work for over 20 years, yet I wasn't aware of the Great Awakening until the pandemic as well. Yet I remember when so my kids always brought lunch because I'd go into the lunchroom and be like, what is this garbage they are feeding kids? I mean, processed sugar. And I would just look at it, and there were a couple times I did a story on it. I talked to people about it. Yet it was so interesting that everybody was like, okay, this is just what kids eat. And so as I look back at that now, I'm like, oh, like everything was programmed. The food, there was a reason that the food was not only unnutritional, but full of just junk. Do you mind, Sherri, talking just a moment about sugar?
Yeah, I'm ready to talk about sugar, because sugar is, sugar feeds the parasites that they have, and there's a reason why they feed children that processed food, because it's their host parasites, and then the sugar feeds the parasites. And that's a very physical explanation, but the true or origin is what's even worse. And I learned this in a session. So a lot of just to caveat for a second, a lot of
Yeah.
the information, if not all, because I'm not a researcher, I don't pretend to, I hate research, in fact. So I don't go out and research this information. What I know, I have learned through many thousands of sessions, both with adults and children, over, a decade of work. So I hear I get these messages in the sessions. And one thing that really rocked my world, I don't even know how, I think it was probably close to 4 years now. It's been a while. I got in a session, I was told that sugar is one of the most detrimental things in our reality. And the reason for it is because it's not even from Earth. It didn't even originate here. It was brought here. And it's like a weed in other planets. And it was brought here to disrupt the energy system of the person, but also physically, because it's like researchers now know that it's like cocaine, essentially, and it's like speed. It's a false sense of energy, and then there's a crash that follows. So this causes developmental delays in children, behavioral issues, but it also, like I said, feeds the parasites, causes so much disbalance and dis-ease within the body. And they brought that here on purpose, because they knew they always want to target the children, because that's the children are the leading guiding forces in our humanity. And that thinks that most people would say, Sherri, that's backwards. It's the adults. No, it's actually the children. The children are the most wise, the most connected to their multidimensional aspect. They're the visionaries. And then that is it gets broken at some point, and then the adults come in and think that they're imaginative, but they are really just working through programming. And so if they target the children from a young age, then they can hook them in, like I said. And so that's why so many children are targeted. There's candy everywhere. Everything has sugar. I don't need to explain that to everyone. And it's so cheap. Why is it that my kid can get a candy bar and it costs less than getting a piece of fruit? And there's a reason for that, because they want them to have an addiction to it all the time, because of the behavioral issues, because it can cause developmental delays and so many different things, that this is bigger than people realize. And so I'm not saying don't give your children sugar. There are healthier versions of it. You can use maple syrup, you can use honey, there are dates. I mean, there are real sugars that are actually important parts of our diet. And then of course, within the fruits, the natural fruits themselves, but the refined sugar, even raw sugar is not good either. But we kind of, parents got to do what they have to do. And I always say everything in moderation. My children eat candy once in a while. It's not a big deal, but it's every single day, all day. With cereal, sugar in the cereal.
Oh my
Then
gosh.
they're having Gatorade with their lunch.
Soda, right.
And sodas, and then they have junk in their lunch, and then they're coming home and they're having candy after school, or something, or yogurt with riddled with sugar. And then you see, so it's constant all day, every single day, and that's how they get you. So sugar is really, really important part of our diet that we need to start to wean out.
Ooh. So one of the teachers for I think she was in the fourth grade at this time, her rewards were sugar-based rewards. And she would start giving them like, I don't know if school started like 8:30 in the morning. Oh, here's a little piece of candy. So I remember talking to the principal, just going, or talking to her, hey, could we, instead do pencils or do something else? Because also, sugar brings on all these issues, which connects us to, big pharma and all that connection with drugs. And this is going to make you feel better. Sherri, do you mind for a second going into these? Because I work with these labels a lot too. So ADHD, autism, dyslexia. Let's talk about that for a second. What those challenges really mean from a spiritual perspective.
Right. And I like that you said spiritual perspective, because there's always more than one answer for everything. And many of us already know the direct kind of result of these things that we get. And is a physical reason that a lot of these challenges are popping up in our reality, that are obviously on purpose. The toxins in the food, the water, and those things that we get as a young child, and all of those. I'm always careful. I don't even know where we're publishing this, so I try to be careful with my words. So there's that side of it as well. So yes, that does contribute. But what I learned, and again, I didn't learn this because I was in search of it, because my children haven't necessarily been diagnosed with anything, and so it wasn't on the forefront of my mind. So when I started working more actively with children in my energy healing sessions, the universe was just bringing me, obviously on purpose, but bringing me children that were nonverbal, labeled autistic or Asperger's or dyslexic. And I'm like, why is the universe bringing me all of these children? And I realized because I was going to be a messenger for them. And I didn't understand it at the time, but I do now. And what I learned through these sessions is that it's so we have to start disconnecting from the labels. I talk about this in my third book heavily. The whole first part is about that, because there is a energetic and spiritual perspective, or explanation rather, for all of them. And it has to do with the density of consciousness that they have, how many lives that they've had here. Some of the starseeds coming through, the children are new to the earth, meaning they are already enlightened ascended beings coming from Arcturus, Pleiades, Andromeda, even in other universes, through the blue avian portals, all sorts of different places. So they come here and they have to learn how it is to operate in 3D, which is a very dense, dark, difficult, and then on top of that, a very primal human body, because our bodies are very primal. They're very 3D as well, on purpose, with genetic modification, etc. So they're like, whoa, not only am I in a dense world, but everybody's acting kind of funny, and I don't really relate to anything here, and I'm not going to speak your language because of the curses, and I'm not looking at people in the eyes because I can see their demons, and I can see their true authentic self, and it's scary to me. I don't like eating your food because it's toxic. So they're trying to figure out how to navigate. So you have the autism spectrum, where they walk fun. Let's say they walk different. Well, they're trying to figure out how to walk in a human body that's dense. Maybe they're light bodies where they came from, or maybe they're aquatic beings trying to figure out how to walk in two legs. They don't, like I said, I had a child tell me one time, I said, why don't you look in people's eyes? And he said to me, I don't want to see their demons. And I've had many children say that when they get overwhelmed, and the reason they don't want to look in people's eyes is because not only do they see their entourage of entities, both good and bad, but they can see through to their soul level and their intentions, and they know if they're good, what their intentions are, the thoughts that they have. They see everything. It's like seeing someone naked. They don't want to see that. It's very overwhelming, and they don't understand how to process it and interpret it. So they just choose to look away. They're not going to look at, they don't want to look at you completely. A lot of them are nonverbal on purpose because they don't want to speak our language because of the word spells that our language is riddled with. So they won't speak our words. They're not going to say it. They're like, I'm not going to summon demons by saying that word. So they do it for that reason. Others choose to come in non-verbally to teach telepathy to their family and friends first, and then the more people that come into their world. And most, if not all, the families that I work with nonverbal children, almost 100% understand each other just fine. So they're doing it, they're figuring it out, and they're helping us communicate through our heart center, through our intuition. So we don't use words, we bypass that, which is light language. Light language is nonverbal a lot of the times. It's cues, it's energy, and then sometimes there are vocalization or tones, but they all have a harmony and they mean something. When you break up our words, when you break up harmonies and these beautiful melodies into words, then they do that on purpose. So it disrupts the flow and the interpretation of it, and it limits our ability to communicate well, which is why a lot of us say, oh, I can't, there's no words to describe, because there isn't. But our feelings are infinite. So if you could just tap into how I feel, you would know my my love for my daughter, let's say, because you could feel it. And you're like, all right, I don't need words. I feel it. I understand. And that's how they communicate outside of here. So they're trying to encourage us to do that. And so there's so many variations to dyslexia, and why they see numbers that are their trouble with numbers and reading, because the way our words are written and the style is not conducive to them. So they're trying to figure out our system, and they're ridiculed as a result of it. And then they are put in special classrooms, or told that they have behavioral issues, all because they want to convince the parents, if they create labels and they can compartmentalize them, then they can put them on medication, and then they win, the dark players, because then they are suppressing the light of the starseed, and the parents have no idea that they're being targeted. They don't know. The child with ADHD is just a high frequency star being that has so much energy of light that their body can't withstand the energy, because there has to be an integration. So what do? They can't sit still. They got to move. They're active because their body is full of light, and they're trying to increase the density of the body, which they are slowly. And our bodies are all changing, but they have to figure that out. They can't sit still. Those that are Asperger's are very left brain. Those are the brainiacs and the ones that are coming from other planet systems that are bringing in technology, and they're so smart. They don't want to play with toys. They don't relate to being a child. They just want to use their brain and do what they came here to do, so they can get through the awkward child stage and then get older and then invent something really important that we need, that we're lacking. So there's an explanation for literally everything. I just went really quickly through it, but that's kind of a gist of it. There's an explanation for every single, what we would call a symptom that these children have. And unfortunately, in our society, we're programmed to look at them as, oh, you poor thing, and is there something wrong with them? When in reality, they are the way showers, the pioneers, the innovators, the healers of our future. They have gifts, but they're not looked upon as gifts. And that's this transition is taking place. And I think that I'm out speaking about it, and many others are, not just me, so that we can I can't tell you how many hundreds of parents who have emailed me saying they saw one video of me talking. They realized that they're like, I resonate so much with that. That's why my son or daughter is that way. I'll never buy into this label again. Thank you so much. You saved my life. That's it. If I could just help people here and there, then they can think for themselves, and then they can do what they want. That's kind of where we are as guides and mentors, to help people and assist in a transformation that's taking place.
Yes. So I like to say too, special needs is because they are so special. It's not because they're needy or because they're limited. All right, let me tell you this little incident, Sherri, and see what you think about this. So I worked for a while at this remarkable place, and it was a bunch of special needs people. And within that, I could see their gifts. So there was this one gentleman who couldn't talk, was in a wheelchair, and felt that, oh my gosh, if he could just be put in a room where there was a lot of contingency going on or fighting, he would quell all of that. Like, that's his thing. So the two people that ran this organization tried to, make it into a nonprofit so we could really have these people do what they were born to do. Yet it didn't quite happen. But then a part of me is like, who at that time, this is probably 7 or 8 years ago, who at that time would have accepted any of this. Like, you're just going to take someone in a wheelchair and plop them in this room where people are fighting. That's wrong. What are you doing? And would the parents on any level be open to that? So are you obviously, well, I'm going to ask you this anyway, seeing that parents are becoming more open to these wonderful discussions versus your child is not limited. There is so much more, and we just have to figure out what that is. We have to be open to it. Are you finding more parents going, yes, let's do that, Sherri? What can you guide us with? Or yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah, yes. I mean, yes, and yes. I think that this is part of the transition that's occurring, is the awakening of the parents. So we've all chosen our course. I believe we all go through the experiences that we have chosen for a reason. But I believe that many of us, if not all, well, really all of us, we just maybe we're not all aware yet, that have children that have, I don't have labeled children, but if someone came in here, I could already tell you, oh yeah, one would be labeled Asperger's, one would be ADHD and severe personality, like, disruptor, and then the other would be, like we all have labels. I could diagnose them myself.
Mhm.
But they're here to awaken us. And one of the biggest things that Aramis taught me before she was born, was she pointed out to me the different types of children, and she let me know that I was going to have 3 completely different children.
Okay,
And
I
at the
don't think
time,
you have said that her name was Aramis, and that's the name of the school. I think we talked
yes,
about her being Lila. So yeah, her. Okay,
yes,
all
good
right, we'll
point.
go back to that.
So she came in as Lila, but she's part of the Aramis group. And so I named her Aramis, which is also a segment of the Artemis group, which is a whole other conversation.
Okay.
But I named the centers after her, and this movement called the Aramis Collective, which is the nonprofit portion, because she is a movement. She is the legacy that I'm creating. What she asked me to help her with was to create this new education, this new earth education for children, which is not even just, we could get into that at the end, but it's not just about education. It's actually more than that.
Yes.
But she was the one that taught me the different types of starseeds that are coming through. And she let me know that I was going to have 3 very different children. And man, was she right. I mean, they're all completely different, like completely in their own categories. And she said, it's going to be difficult for you and challenging, but you're going to need to experience it for yourself, so that when you work with parents that that have a child like one of us,
You'll
are going to
understand.
be able to relate to them.
Yeah.
And man, was she right, because it really, when I started to work more with children, I'm like, oh man, yep, they're right, like Aramis, yep, got it. They're like Skylar, okay. And it helped
Wow.
me. It really helped me understand them. And then I got more information for them specifically. So there's such a dynamic kind of energy with all star seeds, but they do fall into kind of similar categories. And we're not trying to label them. I don't mean that we're going to get out of one label of autism and there's another label of crystal. It's a different energy. It's more of, let's understand this kind of group of gifts and what they're here to do and why, so that we could support them better. So there's a lot to go with that. But there's such different types of energies out there that I think the parents, they're coming into the parents that are ready and open for the most part, so that they can spiritually advance and awaken their parents. And then once the parents awaken, there's something that ignites in them that also has no words. And when they resonate with what I say, they're like, yes. And then the mama bear and the papa bear comes out, and they're like, oh no, no one's going to suppress my child. No one's going to indoctrinate my child. Let's work together. And that's why I have thousands upon thousands of people all over the world backing what I'm doing, because they're like, yes, we agree with you. How can we help? And I think that's part of the Aramis collective that I'm creating. It's a beautiful community of children and parents and grandparents and caregivers and teachers. I have thousands of teachers backing me that are saying, yes, what you're doing is what I wanted this whole time. How can I get involved? I want to help. And what we're creating is this beautiful new era, a new movement of unindoctrination, not school. That's why we have to change the vocabulary. So I use the word center. We don't have teachers, we have mentors. So you have to change the vocabulary so that it's conducive to where we're going. And we allow the children to also teach us. So the children are teaching the parents. Look how much my daughter taught me before she was even born. And these children are teaching their parents a lot more than they realize. And if we have less resistance and allow them to teach, it's infinite, the amount of things that they can teach us if we just let them, if we just listen and take our mom hat off for just a minute and say, go ahead, what do you want to show me? What do you have to teach me? You would be surprised. I don't care if the child is 2 or 17, they will teach you something absolutely incredible and they will change your perspective on things. They will change everything, but for a reason. And that's, so yes, there are an army of parents out there that are active and aware and ready to help in this transition for the betterment, not only of their children, but for all children and the generations to come. And that's where it's at.
How long did it take to develop this army? Did it happen pretty quickly?
Well, it depends on what army you're talking about. I believe it's generational. So I think that many of us signed up for a generational assignment. So this is brewing for hundreds of years. And that's where Dolores Cannon, I have so much respect for her.
Me too.
And the 3 waves of volunteers. So think about the first wave that came in that set the pathway for the second and the third, and now the children, which we call the 4th wave. So it's hundreds of years in the making. That we have collectively been preparing for, and we need certain shifts to occur to align us with what's coming next. And where we are right now, though, we're in, like, I think, hyper speed mode. So things are happening much faster. So I would say somewhere around the year 2000 mark to 2005, we really started to expedite this transition. And then of course the pandemic. Again, there's a negative side and there's always a positive side. The negative side was what they were trying to do, and the positive side is look what happened as a result of it and how many people woke up, and that's when I think the community grew and blossomed even more.
Okay. And are you finding that, like, you'll share something with a parent? I'm assuming a lot of people come to you because they've heard you, so they're already open. Then when they hear more, is it just like a veil falling off for a lot of people, like that quickly, that there's just like, oh my goodness, I suddenly understand this. This makes sense. Is it pretty quick these days?
Very fast. I mean, I just had a session with a woman just before this that I was talking to her son, and then she ended up coming on. He's an older, I mean, he's grown. He's, in his 30s. But they lived together, and she came on, and we had the most profound reading in 20 minutes. And she basically said, you just saved my life. Oh my God. She was like in tears, and it was that fast, and the information just came through, and that's all she needed to hear. And I said, you're doing the work of your entire ancestral healing. Like, you are here to heal thousands. And she knew it, though. But sometimes we need to hear it. Sometimes we need the validation. We know it, but we need to hear it. So when I work with people, whether it's someone with children or not, even adults, they know things, they feel it, but they never had anybody to talk to about it. And then when I come out with it, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never told anybody. I can't believe you just said that. They feel validated. And I'm like, that's the universe trying to give you a message. You're on track. Don't give up. And I think that not only am I here to be the founder and kind of the pioneer for children and education, and to support Starseeds, the children, because I'm very passionate about that. Obviously, I think because I have children, it enhances that. But I also am very passionate about helping adults find their way and work through programming and healing, so that they can then stand up and say, yes, I understand why I've been through this my whole life and these things, why I am the way I am. And now I look to the future in a much different way, and I'm excited. There's no drug out there that can make you feel as good as that. Just knowing that you're on the right path and you feel excited about it. And then that's what I talk about. The whole purpose of the 3D interference portion of my book was not to scare anybody. It was, hey, look at all the things that they do to program us. Look at all the things they do to suppress us and to harm us and to separate us from our higher knowing. But guess what? All of it is null and void just by you knowing and you saying, I don't consent. That's how powerful we are. But they bank on us not figuring it out so they can continue to control us. But they know just as well as we do, if we stand in our power and we don't consent, they can't win. And it's as simple as that.
Just be practice. One video that I watched of you basically talking about how many screens we have in our house and our phones and all that these are portals, essentially, dark portals. And if we just say we don't consent to that being that way with us, that is all essentially all we need to do. Not to say, oh gosh, you can have 20 TVs around your, your house and have TVs in your bedroom and all that stuff. But yet again, this control that we have over this oppressiveness. Is there anything else you want to say within that? I might have said,
Yeah.
I might have said
Yeah, no,
everything.
you're right on. I mean, I went to a restaurant with my children the other night,
Oh gosh.
and there was, I looked around. I was
Uh-huh.
literally like sitting there and I was looking around. There was probably 25 like basically
It's
we were in the
nuts.
epicenter of a TV matrix. Like there
Hmm.
was probably 25 and they were all looking at me and I was like, "Oh my God, people have no idea the
I
energy
know.
that's coming out of
And there's
these
so many
things."
restaurants like that now, these
Oh
sports
yeah.
bars that you can't even have a communication with someone
Yes.
because something's yapping in the back.
And every panel, every TV was playing something different. It was really
Oh,
overwhelming. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So this black box technology, they're portals. So the computer screens, the monitors, the phones, the TVs, all of the projectors, they're all portal systems that allow energy to come through and essentially come into our space and latch onto us, mess with us, do whatever it wants to do. It's part of the dark web, but not dark web, literally web, but the web of the
got it.
matrix and their portal systems. And you don't have to get rid of all of that stuff because I just like you, I need my computer. I use it every day. I work on it. I do Zoom sessions with my clients. I do interviews on it. I need it. I can't just throw it outside and get rid of it. And I need my phone. I need to be able to get in touch with my family. So we can use technology to our benefit, but also we can protect ourselves. So simply by knowing that what I just said, the way you protect yourself is you say, like the two most important things that I can leave this conversation with today that works for adults and children is number one, I do not consent. So you say, I do not consent to any 3D interference. It could be a blanket statement. I do not, or you could go through, I do not consent to the portals in my TV, the black box technology, the ET interference, the this, the that, all of those things. Or you could just simply say, I do not consent to any 3D interference that is not, and this is the second part, that is not of my highest good. So you are saying anything that's not of your highest good, you are not consenting to. You don't have to say anything else. You don't have to list a million things. You could just say, if it's not of my highest good, I do not consent, period, in all dimensions, time, and space. And so it is. That's it. And you can say that once a day. You could say it twice a day. You could say it whenever you feel like you might be being attacked. You have some weird undertone of knowing like something's around me. Just say, I do not consent to 3D interference. That's not of my highest good in all dimensions, time, and space. And so it is. Teach your children that are old enough to say it. My daughter says it. She likes to listen to certain music. And I say, no, you can't listen to this artist because they have sold their soul. She's like, but mommy, I really love this song. Okay, fine. I'll listen to the song. And I'm like, all right, well, it's not that bad. So what I'll tell her is, okay, if you want to listen to it, you say before, I do not consent to the 3D interference of this song and any energy that comes with it. And she said she does it. She's like, mommy, I said I don't consent. Good. So I teach them, because we're living in this reality. Like
Right.
hear the music when we go out in the stores where it's around us. You can't avoid it a lot
Constantly.
unless you're in the woods. So I just teach her, I do not consent. And she says it. And my older son says it. And my middle son will say it. I say it. And if they're too young or you just feel like they're not going to get it, then you do it as their parent, father, grandparent, mother, caregiver. You can do it for them. Say, I do not consent to any 3D interference towards my children, my daughter, in all dimensions, time, and space. That's not for her highest good. Now, the other side of that, the positive thing that you can incorporate is you can start saying positive affirmations. I attract, I am universally loved, supported, and protected for my highest good in all dimensions, time, and space. And so it is. So you're just saying, I attract abundance into my life with these, or any experiences that align with my highest good. You're something with my aligning with my highest good should be at the end of every set, like those ad libs that you used to do when we were younger. Like it just ends your sentence with that, as whatever you're praying for, as long as it's for my highest good, and you just learn to say, I do not consent, and make sure you're specific about whatever experience you're calling towards you aligns with your highest good. Those two things will change your life. Just those two things. I mean, among many others, but those are two really foundational ones.
Practice as well. Okay. And so much of what Sherri is saying right now too is being aware not only of what is happening and what you're saying in your mind, but being aware of the screens, being aware of music, being aware of TV, being aware of your own words. So I've really been, for example, cleaning up my words on a level that I have Well, been really good with that, but now taking it to an nth degree of any of that. So, can you also close us out with telling us more about your center and what parents so I'm putting this out there too, so my intention is for the highest good of everybody to know that this is where we are moving and that
Yes.
Sherri beautifully is starting this and it exists already. So tell us a little bit more about what kids can learn at your center.
Yes. And you know, I just want to also say the important part of what you said is for the highest good of all listening and the children of the future. I believe that I am a pioneer of a movement, but it doesn't mean that Aramis is going to monopolize the world. It's not supposed to be a 3D mentality. I am suggesting what I see if for what children want in the future. But there are many beautiful souls all over the world that have been inspired by me to open their own. And there's going to be Aramis learning centers in every state, in a lot of cities, both in this country and internationally. But there are also going to be an equal amount of other communities that have their own centers, families that create their own environment. So it's this is just a movement that's beautiful, and everyone can do whatever they want, that whatever suits them. But for what I'm creating is, okay, I'm going to try to provide as best I can the environment in as many states as I can, and it's really child centered. So it's child, it's they come first. So there's three pillars to what I'm creating. There's the educational component, there's animals, and then there's health and wellness. So what that means is we have the main pillar is education. How can our children learn not the foundationals? I'm talking not only metaphysics and energy, spirituality, working with crystals, working with the elementals, connecting to the earth, grounding, conflict resolution, but also how to garden, how to sew, how to make your own food, how to, all of the things that we should be learning in school that we're not. Home ec doesn't count. I mean, we need to have predominantly the education should be about trades, passions, and things that are real life relatability. And then you sprinkle in some mindfulness, math, some spiritual science, some of those things. But if the child, like I said, if they're a brainiac and they thrive in the academics, then in what I'm creating, they can go all in, and 90% of their day could be that. And then they may say, oh, I want to do some running today and do some physical activity, or I want to go out and work with the animals. So there'll be an animal component where it's not just about being with animals, because I communicate with the animal kingdom. And one of the biggest messages that I've received in the last couple of years, more than ever before, is we need to reestablish the human animal bond. It's so misguided, so misinterpreted, so there's a lot of 3D interference with that. And I have a whole section on that in my book. And so it's how can we combine the two and let the animals heal us and teach us and guide us, but also how can we help teach, heal, and guide the animals? And I know that sounds weird. How can we teach the animals? But we can. And so it's, how can we incorporate animals into the children's everyday? So it's animal sciences, it's painting with the animals, it's learning energy healing with the animals, it's just being immersed with the animals while they're playing, and everything in between. So the animals is a huge pillar. And then the health and wellness, we need to get out of that nurse, nothing wrong with nurses, I didn't mean to say it that way, but the health units in the schools are so dry and so scary. I envision, which is going to be my baby, is a beautiful healing center in every center that is absolutely phenomenal. The children will beg to go there. They'll have healing biofeedback machines that do frequency healing on them. They'll have bio mats that heat up with crystals. If they have a tummy ache, they go and lay on it. There are essential oils. There's Reiki practitioners. There's Himalayan salt caves that they could go in and read a book in if they want. They're everything. There's spiritual counselors in there. Everything, sound healing, anything that you can imagine that's alternative is available to our children and their families. So when they go in, it's a community, it's a center that has health and wellness, education, and animals all combined. Every single one of them will have these three components. Those are the three main components of it. And it's a place that I promise you children will beg to go. They won't want to leave. They will have fun learning. They will be combined with other children of similar age, but not restricted to grade. There will be no grade levels. There will be no grades given. There will be no tests, and there are no curriculums. It's simply a community where I believe is Lemurian based, where I'm channeling a lot of this from because I had a life in Lemuria. And I think we're bringing a lot of those philosophies forward, but we're also bringing indigenous spirits and of the planet and their philosophies forward, and many other galactic civilizations, all combining a greater knowing and a greater experience for the children to thrive, so that when by the time their children come,
Oh
they
man.
will have a completely new world. And this indoctrination period, it's going to be like, wow, did you know that this happened at one point? Like, but it's not anymore. That's what I believe. Aramis, my daughter, came into this world. She's a big soul, like way more advanced than me. Sure. That's why my daughter, she's a powerhouse. So she's here to, that's why I keep saying she's creating a legacy, and I'm just here to get it going for her. And then I step aside and then she just takes it over, because this is what she told me she needed help with. And I'm happy to oblige. And then I'm happy to step out of the spotlight, and then she comes in and she takes over. And I think that's our journey together. But it's not just about her and my kids. It's about just the New Earth children.
Kids.
And the Great Awakening that we're talking about. And this is just one component, one facet of it, but everything is changing all over the world, from leadership to the political system to the medical. I mean, all of it. It's all shifting. And there are starseeds all over that are pioneers in different movements that are not my children. And it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
All right. So anyone who's like, oh, is this happening now? Things are happening, and having Sherri on the show, you can really start to see that people are waking up. It's just very, even in the parts of it that are really hard and challenging, that has to happen to create all of these sparks and this opening. So Sherri, thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's very exciting, and lots of love to you and energy and all of it. Is there anything else you want to close out with or add?
Yeah, there's one quick thing I want to say, because otherwise I'm going to get a lot of emails about this. The first in-person center is not open yet.
Oh, yeah.
We are only virtual. And we took a break over the summer to give our mentors some time with their families. We're slowly getting back in. Every month we add a bunch of classes that are both for parents and children of different ages, different subject matter. So we're constantly adding more classes all the time. But we don't have and they're really extracurricular right now. They're for fun. And a lot of homeschool children take our classes, but also public school children will take it because they can't learn about crystals in school or astrology. So they take our classes. Wow. But we don't have the first center open at this time. We are raising money, which is what our nonprofit is about. And this is more of a humanitarian project. So I'm not rushing it. And this is a free center that I'm trying to, everything I just said is going to be free. So I don't want investors. This is when the flip event occurs and we have humanitarian funding, we'll have the money we need to open these, and they will be free to the public. So I'm not rushing this. There has to be the right timing. But if people are watching this and they want to support us and give us a donation, it helps, because that's how we pay for almost everything we do. We have the 8th children's book coming out, called, this one's about the chakras. We have 8 children's books that talk about everything you can imagine: earth elements, energy, healing, Bigfoot, mindfulness, superpowers, all sorts of things. And then I have a cartoon animation series that has like 18 episodes. And so all of the funding and donations we get goes to all of that and more. And so I just want to be clear that the first center, probably I put trajectory of 2023, but as we know, there are many delays due to 3D interference. So it's likely, I'm aiming now for 2024. It will be in West Palm Beach vicinity for those. And I'll let everyone know as we progress. You can follow us through our newsletters, Instagram. I have a YouTube channel and an Instagram under my name, but we also have the Aramis Creative Learning.com and the AramisCollective.com. So you can find information in any one of those places as to our progress.
Very good. And if someone wanted to reach out specifically, I'm assuming they're just a contact, how to get in contact with, because I'm going to have all your links as well. If they just want to contact or reach out, can they do that?
Yeah. So the easiest way is through my main website, which is sherridivband.com. And there's a way to email me through there, and that will be the fastest way to get me. I have 4 emails and like 5 social medias that I manage, so it's a lot, but that's the one that I check the most.
Okay, so what if
sherridivband.com.
Not specifically having to reach out specifically to you, but to learn more information about the center? Well, I guess they can just follow and just look, and then if they have specific questions,
they could go to aramiscreativelearning.com,
okay.
and that's where all the classes are and information about what we do. All of our mentors have a profile on there. You can see who the mentors are.
Nice.
All of that.
All right, excellent. All right, man. Well, keep up the good work, and I think over and out. Is there anything else? This is great.
I don't know. I think that was it. I really enjoyed this conversation today. It was lovely. You asked questions that I haven't had before. I do so many interviews. It's nice when somebody asks me something that I haven't been asked before. That's always fun.
Yes, that's when I feel things and feel questions to ask. So I love that. So nice to meet you today. Hang on just a moment. Hey, everybody, we're done. We're done here. And plus, I want to go to Sherri's center. I want to attend. I want to be a student. All right. See y'all later. So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or True Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.